What is up, everybody? Welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is our spot. Karibuni sana. Niko hapa, of course, with the one and only,
the realest OG. Yeah, what do you do? Are you good?
Niko sawa, and myself, of course, Haron. Glad to have you back. Huko aje?
Niko salama. Nashukuru, my week has been good. Yeah, kama kawa, just looking forward to yet another episode.
Ulisema discipline lazima ijipe.
Discipline lazima manze. Hiyo nao nilisema lazima tunini. Let's just keep moving pole and then we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, very good to hear. And I mean niko salama. Grinding for the week, of course.
Yeah.
Kama kawaida kusukuma tu. Also glad to be here by the way. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. So you want to introduce today's topic?
No, acha nikupatie leo at least. Nikichapa ka introduction kila wiki inakaa ni mimi nimebeba hii kitu. No, it's fine. Let me let you introduce today's topic.
It's okay. So anyway, so today we are talking about how you can tell if the environment that you're working in, or rather your company culture, is toxic. So we just want to look at some of the signs that you may look at, and then if, for example, you want to join a job, a corporation, before joining, then those signs can actually inform your decision on joining or not. Or if you still want to, you already are in that corporation, you want to make a switch. Then there are signs that you're seeing. We want to just see the signs that you may be able to look out for. Kama where you're working
is toxic.
Yeah, it's a toxic place.
So inamaanisha hapo watu by the time we're done with this episode, kuna watu watakaa kweza I'm in a toxic environment. Okay, very interesting. I'm sure, guys, you've also seen the title down there, which of course already sells it. But yes. Do you think we can first start by either defining hizo terms zenye tumetumia, toxic plus corporate culture, ama what? How do you want us tufanyaje?
We can. I think culture basically is what? I wish ningekuwa hiyo the technical definition of it. But how I understand culture is like I think I would call them the values of an organization that that run across the entire organization. So from top down, you can be able to look at that organization from afar, maybe even without being part of that organization. You can be able to tell that they have this culture. So I'm sure uko na mabeshte hadi unasikianga wakisema by the Safaricom they have this culture, they have culture flani.
There's a way they do things.
Yes, they do. There's a way they do things. There's places zingine utasikia, even if you've never worked there, msi akisema that place, the culture there hapana, like how people are being treated, how people behave. So it's more or less the values of a company, not just the values that they write on their notice board or whatever, but how
some organizations will have the written values, but ukifika kwa ground matters ni different. You're saying ama ni kama uko na experience.
I'm sure kila mtu ako na experience. We've all worked for companies at one point or another. And I'm sure there are things that we've observed, or other things that we've experienced that we're like, that one. And some of these things, they eventually maybe lead people to leave that company for another one. And if you look at another company and then you see that they have a better culture than yours, then there's a chance that you might be lured
to switch,
the grass
to make that move.
Is always greener there. So there's that chance by the way.
Okay.
So that is the culture. I think a toxic environment basically, or rather toxic culture, is a culture that is, I would call it negative. A culture, a very negative culture, and a culture that ukiwa tu uko like, easy, me this one I can't, like, you can't survive. It's not even fit for your own health. Yes, you may be getting the money, but maybe it's affecting your mental health, your physical health. It's affecting your relationships at home with family and whatnot. And those are some of the things that we want to look at today. So for me, I would like to start with okay, I'm sure people have experienced this, but there are places where you'll find kuna hii culture ya
it's an offense, it's a free, non-judgmental, etc.
Kuna places too, and I'm sure it's not just workplaces. I'm sure kuna places more too.
Oh yeah, so as in this discussion can not only be in the context of an organization, operate anywhere, because wherever we interact there are definitely cultures. So inaweza kuwa culture kwa nyumba yako, inaweza kuwa culture kwa wherever with your buddies when you're hanging out and all that, right? Okay.
Inaweza kuwa culture even within the country, within the continent. So
very true.
But makes sense. In the context of this conversation,
let's focus on organization.
So ni gossiping, so because and I'm sure by the way experience it too. Like there are places where you will find that people just talk and talk like unajua, and they're not talking about things that are vitu zinasaidia kuendeleza nchi ama kampuni ama kuachieve KPIs. It's just we've met and then so I'm like, see, we are colleagues. Just start telling you about, Betty, did you see Alvin the other day? Did you see what he did? Ama if we are neighbors, for example. And then
usually I think kwanza I think the most prominent one ni, for example, it's a Monday, Friday kulikuwa na corporate event. I think that's a perfect example.
Yeah. So unapata say like whatever happened that maybe it was on a Friday or a Saturday, like people just bring all those stories to work. Did you see Nani Sijui Mumuli left with that chick from HR? They left together, and then people don't even know if Mumuli and Aulim were to leave to come drop kwao. So we just start hearing like, did you ati Nani walionekana na Nani on a Saturday? It's not a working day. What were they doing at the mall together? Things like that. Things as hakuna msezi nasaidia. Vitu and mostly gossiping usually revolves around very personal details about someone that people just feel the need or the urge to share with other people, and they don't help anyone. So for me, first of all, I think we waste a lot of time. So it wastes a lot of time. Inakuwestia time, energy, you thinking about that instead of thinking about your KPIs. So at the end of the day, there's some productivity inarudi chini
because of gossip.
Yeah, and then it also, in a way, you dent trust. Because, for example, and this is something I've discovered about gossiping. For example, if we are friends, and then I go tell, Githinji something about you. Something maybe very personal you just shared with me, and then that thing Githinji tells someone else, and that someone else tells another person. You know how, just things.
Yeah.
And then eventually it comes back to you.
To the next.
Yeah. So when it comes back to you, and you're like, the only person I shared this with is my dear friend hapa.
My very close friend.
Yeah, imagine like mkwadhani mseni OG kumbe alienda kuropoko huko. So you're like, it affects the relationship that we have. So the trust even there is affected in one way or another. So and that also just affects even the working relationship. Like probably we are supposed to collaborate on a task together at work, then automatically some friction inaanza tu hapo. I don't know where the kind of experience you've had when it comes to
okay, of course I also have experience around gossiping. It's very, very close to what you're mentioning, that information will pass around, then eventually unajua it's the 7 degrees inakwanga 7 degrees of separation imeendea mtu, then eventually the last person is the person who can talk to me alafu itanifikia of course. But I think hata before I share my experience, I don't know if you'll be open to this. I'm interested to find out. Of course, tumesema gossiping is a no-no, right?
It's a no-no, yeah.
I'm sure though you found yourself in that scenario where umejipata tu kwa hiyo soup ya gossiping, right? Yenye either probably sio unaongea kuihusu, probably someone mtu mwenye ako fond of gossiping amekuja akakwambia by the way Githinji umesikia ABC. I'm interested to know how do you handle such scenarios, because I think when you're in that space, for you what happens, you have about I'm seeing like 3 or 4 options. Option 1 would be either uperpetuate, uendeleze, ama uamue kuulia hapo, ama uflow na I'm just interested to know, as in because this is what forms the corporate culture. Whatever decisions you make will build up to the norms of the organization, which eventually builds up to now the corporate culture. So as for you, Siju, I don't know.
Okay, out of all those options that you've given,
I'm sure there are more. I'm sure there are more.
The easiest one, the easiest one would be, I'd say, is to perpetuate the.
Oh, you perpetuate?
No, I'm not saying that you're on my. I'm just saying, like, usually that is what happens. Like, for example, even you right now, if I come and tell you something, and gossip is usually very, match the energy. It's usually very juicy. Like, I won't just come and tell you just something. It will be something that you also are interested in hearing more. So when I come and tell you something about, for example, Githere or even my boss or us, you'll be like, Like usually, I'm sure by the a lot of people can relate to
this. Guys, just.
I'm sure. I would say I'm guilty of doing that in a few instances, but I'm also sure if you are being honest with yourself and the viewers are also being honest with themselves, that is usually the easiest reaction. Because you go like, okay, so what happened? Hiya. You mean that he did that? And then, of course, immediately you start asking those questions. You're just encouraging the person to spill more and more and more and more. So the thing just keeps on going. Yeah, keeps on going. So, I would say in a few instances, I've found myself there. And it's very hard to resist. Just the need to know more about something. But... yeah, so kuna zingine nimefanya hivyo. Kuna zingine where, like, for instance, if it's you, so we are friends, and I would consider that we are really tight. So for example, if someone came and told me, hey, by the way, do you know Mumuli said this about you? I'm like, okay. In that instance, because I know you and I know the kind of relationship that we have, I'd be very, very curious to know why would Mumuli say something like that, especially to someone else. I thought we were tight. So in that instance, I would actually come and ask you. I would tell you, hey, by the way, I heard that Nani said this, that you said this. Is it true? And then you'd be able to confirm that to me. If it's true, then we'll address that issue. Because why did you feel it's very difficult to come and address it to me directly? So you had to go to someone else. And then you didn't even think that it would come to me eventually, So you'd come to me. I would come and ask you. For the sake of our friendship, I would come and ask you.
That Nani amesema.
But you see, it's inadepend pia na venye mko close na mse. So if you're really close, then utamuuliza. But if nimse, like, for example, nimse atuongeangi, someone that we don't have that close relationship with, and usually that's the thing with gossip. Someone will just tell you that, by the way, do you know Nani said this about you? Because you don't have a very close relationship with that person. You won't bother to go and ask them, why did you say this about me? So you'll just be like, you'll start hating that person, thinking, that person, whatever. And of course, it creates that
friction,
that tension between you and probably it's a lie. Whatever you were told, it's a lie. Maybe there's a chance that
it's a lie.
It's a lie. So
chance.
You see, you'll never find out. But if we were really close, then I'd come and ask you. And there are some instances I've done that. I've asked someone, hey, so baby, I had this, like, what happened? And then more often than not, we usually just go to the other person. Tunamuuliza, hey, baby, ni aje? Ama, you will tell me, by the way, I'm sorry, I didn't feel, okay to come and
confident to just talk to you about
this.
And I am probably closer to the so and so I felt that by sharing it and opening up na vitu kama hizo.
Yeah. So ile ya kukata, hiyo bebe ni ngumu. And that one, I'm sure not a lot of people do that. I'm sure ni watu kidogo sana hukata like gossip.
So, let me also just share a bit. You had asked a question earlier. For me, sorry, just if you don't mind sharing your swali ya kwanza that you had mentioned again.
Like if someone comes and tells me something about you.
Okay, there was one before that, but let's flow with that. So, for me, again, very true, that ikifika ukijipata ndani hiyo supu hiyo supu ni tamu, my friend.
Ni tamu baby.
Unaweza jipata. And unfortunately hapo we are ukiangalia now in the bigger picture, now you're building up the corporate culture, which is what you're talking about is negative and all that utajipata because ni tamu, unaendelea tu na hizo mastori and you're like, hey, are you serious? Unajua mimi niliona tu akitoka siku dhani ili advanced. Unfortunately, true for me too, that I've found myself in that scenario where unasikiza tu na unachangia and you're like, more often than not, I have perpetuated as well. I have, unfortunately. But for me now, I think my utopic scenario would be yenye probably we know the people very well, which is also an experience I've had. Unaona, like kuna kitu unaweza fanya Githinji, mtu akuja niambie kukuhusu and I'll be like, acha uongo. Unaelewa? So now that would be probably my utopic scenario. Yenye as in we have a good working relationship in such a way that even if, in our example, if Alvin comes in and says, hey, by the way unajua Githinji alifanya hivi, do you realize I'll be like, Alvin, what are you telling me about Githinji? I know Githinji. Hakuna kitu ka. And for me now, as far as tukiongelea gossiping and all that is how I envision, as in kama place itakuwa negative or positive, that we are in such a good working relationship that there isn't something someone can tell me about you that would be shocking. That Alvin akiniambia, I'd be like, it looks like something Githinji would do. And I'd still be comfortable to come to you and say, hey, by the way, Githinji, this is what I've had. And it sounds like you, unaget. Ama I don't even need to validate because by the way, in my mind, I'm like, Githinji is like that. That one I already know, so we don't need to even go any further about it. But for me, the experience has been, and a couple, nimefanya kazi kwa organizations 2-3, and yes, it is very lively that utapata coming in. Probably, again, I reference nikiwa kafresha, and you don't even know how things are operating in the workspace and all that. Then you realize, uku people talk about other people. Unaget? And you're like, okay, now you also need to figure out how you will either be presenting yourself in such scenarios, because either way, unfortunately, we'll find ourselves either as part of a conversation or we'll find ourselves in the conversation.
By the way, either you're part of the conversation,
you're the conversation.
You're the conversation, by the way. See, but funny enough, you've mentioned that there's I read a story somewhere. And they were talking about the same thing about gossiping. Unaona venye wase wenda lunch, like tumeenda like a group of 6 people from the same department, so we are eating lunch. So usually what happens, ule mseme maliza food wa kwanza they leave. They go back to work. So we are left with 5 of us. So the 5 of us that are remaining there, they start talking about whoever has just left.
God.
You see? And then
wait, why is the first person leaving at in the first place?
So, like, probably they finished up their food really quick. Ama they, they've gotten a text, ama a call, they need to go and send something. So they go, So, and usually you have like an hour for lunch. Maybe, amekula na 15 minutes ameenda. So you see, the rest of you, the 5 of you, are talking about that person that has just left. The next person to leave, you talk about that person. You see, so usually what happens, because you have been part of that, you know what happens. Even if you finish your food mapema, you're afraid to leave because you're thinking, but these guys, nikiwaacha hapa, I'm the one that they're going to talk about. Unaona? So it's either you are the conversation or you're part of the conversation. And it's not nini by the sipo by the unapata huwa ina derail a lot of things in organizations. It erodes trust by the people don't trust each other. Because I will not leave you guys here because
talk about me.
I know you will start talking about me. So I'd rather stay here. We leave sisi wote pamoja. And then it happens that when you see people pamoja, when you see them talking, you're just thinking, especially when that culture is rampant in an organization, you'll find that when you see 2 people, you're like, these guys are obviously talking about me. And then you see them talking and then they are looking at you.
Maybe one turn
to you. Maybe wanaongelea vitu zao. But you're so consumed by that culture, you're thinking, these guys are talking about me. So it's I wish people would, I know it's easier said than done, but I wish we would try.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
I think I'll also pose this question, but we can reserve this specific question to summarize, because I believe most of the topics that we'll be handling as far as the corporate culture is concerned, ziko na one blanket solution that can help out. And the question I wanted to ask was, as an individual in that space, what can you do to either erode hizo negative whatevers or to help breed a better culture? But wacha tupose,
we can address that as we summarize everything. Nice, so maybe we can go to the second, maybe another maybe sign that the culture in an organization may be toxic.
Tulianza na gossip.
For me I would say it's an environment where you're not allowed to make mistakes, or rather, like, there's no room to make a mistake. And of course, we know we are human. Like, you can make an error, you can make. So, if you go up to a place where someone just makes like a slight mistake, ndio mlango enda where tumeachana na yeye. So for me, I think that one, it creates the culture where everyone is walking on eggshells because they're just afraid. So you won't even do anything, even if it's a decision, you won't make it because you're thinking, if I make this decision and then we get the wrong outcome here,
ni mimi nitaekewa
kalamu. So it creates that environment where people are not free to make decisions. And I think for me, that one is an environment where you cannot make mistakes, because at the end of the day, we all make mistakes, and we learn through some of those mistakes that we make.
I think this one is slightly harder for me to comprehend. What I can ask to also just help better understand this one is, why is it important for us to make mistakes?
I'm saying like mistakes are part of who we are. I am sure even you, the few years that you've worked in the few companies that you've worked for.
Few years, very few.
Yes. So we make mistakes by the way. So if every time that you made a mistake, you are getting like disciplinaries, show cause letters and whatever, or you're being fired, like what would that tell you?
Hizo kampuni zingekuwa more than
ungekuwa umefanya CV yako ingekuwa na kampuni ka 20 umefanyia kazi na zote hapo tu ni termination, umefutwa tu juu ya ka mistake tu kadogo. So
zote ni termination na nikakataa ku refer to my previous employer.
So for me, I think it's yes, we will not tolerate mistakes, and we try to make sure that people are diligent in their work. They, because we hired you, we expect that you know what you're doing. But if you make a mistake, then it's not the end of life. That is it. And
owning up to your mistakes is part of your input.
Yes, and leave
organizations
leave room for people to make mistakes. Not silly mistakes that very very deliberate, attempt to carelessness. No. But if a mistake is made in the course of performing your duties, and clearly this is a mistake maybe you could not have avoided, then I do not need to hang you for that. So yeah, because I think if you do that, even if you fire me for making that mistake, what message are you sending to the rest of the people that are left in that company?
Eggshells.
That yes, eggshells. No one will do anything. People will just,
operate on eggshells.
Yeah.
And I think now in that discussion, if you generally look at such organizations, it will at some point get difficult for someone to even own up to a mistake that they committed.
Exactly.
That means takwaza justaki kuenda hii hapa hata naweza angalia this is the document that shows I'm the one who niweke chini ya meza ama niweke mahali nifiche mahali yenye by the time inapatikana it's 3 years down the line nishahama kwingine or something of that sort, which again is very unfortunate because as you've mentioned, for us as human beings, mistakes are part of us, number one. And number two, I think also for innovation to even take place, that for you, Githinji, even in your role, I'm sure your operations si zile zenye ulisoma kwa kitabu. You had to advance them in some way. You had to come up with new ways that are probably diverting from whatever you learned, from whatever you've been trained in that same organization, but are serving the organization better, right?
Yeah.
So if again tunasema Githinji, the day you make a mistake, ni ile siku tunakumaliza. So as in
siwezi kuambia nimemake mistake juu
number one, very true,
nitaificha.
You can't tell me you've made a mistake. Number two, you can't improve that process, because if I'm not making a mistake, it means that I am actioning the same steps that you issued me as you're orienting me or something of that sort. I don't know if that makes sense.
So you're killing innovation
exactly
as well. Exactly. People won't be creative in trying different things of doing the job. So there's a story. There's this book called The Speed of Trust by a guy called Stephen Covey. So he says there's a story there he was giving of this guy, I think it was a junior executive who had made a mistake, or rather he had made a decision that ended up costing the company, I think around like $1.2 million. So he was summoned, of course, to I think the director's office.
Board.
Akienda huko, as he was going there, the guy was so tense, like, so he knew, like,
Nikubaya.
Yeah, you're just being told, pack your things, leave. You have, this is your last day. But when he got there, the director told him, we have just spent $1.2 million to educate you. So basically, like, we have spent that money so that next time you do not make that mistake.
That same mistake.
So you see, so even this person next time, okay, he will be very careful not to make that mistake again.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And funny that
The Speed of Trust,
The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. That is a book by there I recommend for every person in an organization, whether you are at a junior level, senior level, management level. And funny enough, the boss that actually suggested that book to me, or rather to us, a similar thing happened when he was in charge. So someone, did a mistake somewhere and it ended up costing the company a bit of money kidogo. But what did they do? Because they had already read that book and they understood that
things happen.
Yeah, these things happen, and this is how you build trust even within an organization.
It's not always about how much are you making for the company.
Yeah.
you don't always just look at the losses.
Exactly. Plus, this person has worked for you for over like 10 years. This one time that they have made just like a small mistake, and it was not due to negligence, it's just something that could have happened to anyone. So you want to like fire him because of that, so they said, we have spent this amount to educate you. So that was really very profound for me as a person. I found that to be very interesting, and I wish that more and more leaders out there, more and more managers would be able to create a room where people
create or even breed such an environment where it's not about the mistakes, it's about how are you improving the process.
Exactly. Improvement is actually the key word.
Because mistakes, of course,
they will happen. Yeah.
But as long as you are keen to identify them and now just see how you can improve it next time, I think tunaweza songa mbele on that.
Exactly.
So, okay.
I think another sign that of a toxic environment.
Githinji, why are you in a toxic environment? Now we need to discuss. Every point has not, and I'm like, what?
I neza kuwa nilikuwa kwa toxic environment, but not necessarily within work. Inaweza kuwa like even a relationship, even a different very setting somewhere else. So yeah. But these are things that people go through.
Yes,
so even you've interacted with friends
100%
who tell you some of these things. It may not be you, could be them.
They tell me some of these things, and I've also experienced them. So it's not like ati ukizi mention, I'm like, hey, I have never heard this before. I've been in this environment where we're talking about mistakes is a no. Ukisikia huyu jamaa, actually hata ukisikia huyu jamaa amechapa mistake flani, what happens is people disassociate ama they start treating you different because they don't want to be associated with the guy who makes mistakes in the organization. But that's okay.
So I think another sign is lack of diversity, and when I say diversity, I mean diversity in terms of Kenya, we have like, I don't know how many tribes, 40 something. In terms of, tribal diversity, gender, so those things. For me, if you go to a place and you find that it is like maybe 90 or 95% of the people there are just from one, let's say, tribe, then of course it's, clearly, for me that is a sign that the environment may not be very, very inclusive. So if I were to go to that environment, I would maybe just think about it twice. So yes, and I think it's important because you also need to make people feel as if they are in an environment that appreciates the diverse, for example, tribes that we have, the diverse races that we have, gender, such things. So for me, that would be a sign that. But gladly, in most of the places that I've worked,
most, not all,
actually all, I'd say all. There has been diversity in terms of tribe and race and gender, which is a good thing, by the way.
Which is also a good thing, and I think I also need to share. Luckily for me as well, in all the environments I've worked in, I have nimeona ka diversity kidogo. So I don't know if that means that Kenya is a diverse. We're operating organizations in Kenya are operating in.
I would
we are so. Diverse.
Yeah, I would like to think so.
But I'm also trying to think about. Unajua, there are some areas where it might not be very possible to be as diverse as we are envisioning. Because as you're mentioning, we're looking at gender, we're looking at a tribe, we're looking at what else are we looking at? Okay, let's just first factor in those two, alafu we'll expand as we go. Gender and tribe. Tuseme ka organization kako geshagi mahali bali yenyewe hapo everyone.
Okay, that one would actually make sense. If for example that organization iko mahali uko tuseme ukikuyuni where like most of the people are Kikuyu, then of course it would only make sense if most of the people there are Kikuyu. But if you come to like an urban center like Nairobi, then you obviously do not expect such kind of, because in Nairobi we have all kinds of tribes. So yeah, for that one, it is also subject to where that organization is. Because also, even I think in terms of gender, you will find that if it's there are professions that some there's professions that maybe women prefer to are more than men, and then others are male dominated. So even with the gender equality thing,
inakuwa ngumu.
They still
kama kwa foreman
like kwa mjengo utapata tu ni maboy tu. So it's mostly men, like foreman ni jamaa, mzee wa kubeba mama yuko ni jamaa, like wote tu ni maboy. So in that one, of course, like but in like corporate cultures where like women and men both can be represented, then I think it's best if we have an inclusive.
I think also in that light of discussion, it also just has to be very intentional within that organization now, because I've experienced what I've experienced now is vile tu nasema that it is very easy for some roles to be dominated by a specific, let's say, a specific subset or a specific group of people. So if that organization isn't very intentional about the recruitment process na hizo vitu zote, very easy tu mtajipata ni wanaume wenye mumetoka area fulani mko hapo mumepatana before you know it mpaka hata mkichat kwa WhatsApp group ya organization amtumii English ama Kiswahili.
Hata wacha WhatsApp group. Ujaipata kwa ofisi, unaenda kwa ofisi fulani unapata like people are just speaking in vernacular left, right and center. As in it's maybe a public office, let's say.
Public office is another topic we need to.
You expect the only languages you will hear there, English or Kiswahili. So when you hear people speaking in vernacular,
but is it offensive for such spaces to use vernacular?
It's very offensive. Personally, I think it's very offensive.
Why though?
Because like if me and you were speaking in vernacular, the other person seated there does not understand that language that we are talking. Like it's not inclusive, because they're wondering, what are we doing? True.
But now let's
if it's an office,
let me play devil's advocate kidogo.
Unaona unaongea vernacular wewe kwa office.
No, hapana. Not at all.
It's okay.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. For example, whatever I want you to do, kusema kwa kizungu, my friend, just takes 9 paragraphs. But if I'm using my vernacular,
who did we hire? If
no,
you cannot,
I'm just wait.
Huwezi compile a sentence in Kiswahili or Kizungu. You have to do it in like vernacular.
What I'm trying to say is, okay,
if assuming it's an email you're writing to your boss or to your colleague or to your customer, will you draft it in vernacular? Because you cannot like put together a sentence in English or Swahili. No. Plus,
okay.
I mean, the other one, no. By the way, to be honest, I najua bado niko guilty of that. Some few instances I find myself, just mother tongue unajipatanga tu umeingia tu kwa hiyo nini. And then there's like a sweetness that comes with that mother tongue. So utajipata tu umeflow now. Someone calls you and then someone initiates the conversation in vernacular, and then you're like, you just dive in pia.
Before you know it,
a whole 4 paragraphs zimeisha in vernacular. People are wondering, what are these guys talking about? So I am guilty of that. But I'm trying. I try as much as possible to avoid it. But I would also advise people who find themselves in that situation to just, when you realize, this is an office setting, let me just dial back.
And
let us just
maintain. It's professional.
It's professional to just speak in English or Kiswahili. Vernacular hiyo tuachie.
Wacha tuseme pani tuachie.
Tuache kwa office especially. In the corporate.
Very true. So, and I agree.
Yeah.
But with my experience, I wouldn't be offended if I found you using a vernacular in the office, because my assumption, probably it's a naive assumption. My assumption usually is wanaongelea kazi, and whatever they're trying to communicate probably would just add mileage if they were to switch in English or Swahili. Because, unaona, again, now if we're recognizing the country as far as diversity is concerned, unaona, I would be comfortable to say something, to very quickly communicate something in my vernacular in comparison to switching to Swahili. So, unaona, the same way, a single word in English, when you translate it to Swahili, inakuwa like an entire sentence. So that's how I put it in my mind. Okay,
but Swahili is not vernacular. Swahili is good.
Swahili is professional. No, I'm just using it as an example.
Okay.
Of course, Swahili and English must. Izo
But
as in
thinking,
our utopic environment, English and Swahili is on your gold standard, right? But now imagine for someone, and I'm not saying that it's something that I would probably push forward as far as if I'm owning an organization when I'm operating within an organization. No, for me. But if I found you using vernacular within that space, I'd be like, Githinji is trying to communicate something quicker. Because unaona, it's the same way. Sometimes instead of kutuma mail, ni kutumie ka chat WhatsApp. Check ile draft nimekusukumia, please shughulikia. Unaona? Ingekuwa kwa mail ningesema good day OG mwenyewe.
Okay, I understand.
How have you been? Unaona?
For that case, I beg to differ.
Okay, totally understood.
I understand like what you're saying, but for me in that instance, I will say as long as it's something official, because I'm assuming if maybe the same message that you're trying to put across, what if I am not from your tribe?
Then you figure it out.
Yes. So if even this other person that is from your tribe figure it out. Anyway, maybe we can just
true.
But anyway, another one I think for me is where there is no.
Githinji, are you sure?
No, it's not things that people.
Which organization had you?
I've been very fortunate by that to work for some very good organizations.
Very good to hear.
So these are not like personal.
Easy personal experience.
No.
Very good to hear.
So I think it's a lack of work-life balance in the sense that you will find.
And these
people working like very, very, very long hours. For example, if you're supposed to go to the office at 8 and then leave at 5, then by the time 5, by the time it's 5, people are still working. So 7, 8, 9, even 10 in the evening, people are still in the office. Saturdays, Sundays, they're still in the office. And for me, that one clearly tells you that there's no work-life balance there. And I think hizo ndo zile places unaendanga unapata it's on a Friday evening and then someone is sending you an email, I need this report by Monday morning, and then the report is
something intensive.
Yeah, very intensive, which means clearly you don't have a weekend. Like
Gushanga 3 days.
3 days. Yes. So like say like hata hajali like it's on a Saturday, it's on a Friday. They don't even care about your weekend. You just get this done. I need it by Monday morning.
It needs
so
to be up
clearly for me that is a sign that the environment there. Yeah, to be honest, because if we all have lives outside of work. So if you cannot allow me to enjoy life outside of work, what is the purpose of even me like having this work in the first place? Because I'm doing the job so that my people and my family can enjoy, can have a good life. But if we cannot have that good life, then I don't know. So for me, it's an indication that this culture is not something that maybe I would want to be a part of.
I was in some conversation and what they were talking about is that in summary these days they no longer call it work-life balance, wanaita work-life integration. Well, I don't know. In my assessment, I think it leans towards your sentiments that kidogo inakaa ni kama the lines are being blurred, lines between your work life and now your own personal time or your own personal life as in that side outside of work. Because in summary, with work-life integration, what I got out of the entire conversation is that organizations more or less facilitate you with an environment where if you take an example of a lady who needs to work during the day, alafu she's a wife during the night, she is able to be cooking and she can still respond to an email
late at night.
So that's work-life integration. I don't know, guys. Also, you can just share your input on the same. But I found it very interesting that it has gotten to a point that those lines are being blurred. I don't know if you're. I don't know now.
There's no like a clear line separating work and
now your personal life. That as an organization, we will understand that as Githinji, probably your weekends uko kwa kinyozi, tutaelewa that uko kwa kinyozi ama you're spending your time with your buddies or whatever you're doing. But we will also understand that you can take some time to just do something that also supports the organization's operations. I don't know what's your take on that. Now, with that point, let me just tell you, I am against that work-life integration. To be honest, because personally, I believe that if it's time for work, let me just do work 8 to 5. And I know you're of a different opinion. You're pro work-life integration. I'm against it in a sense because I think I have been in the office from 8 to 5. Like these 8 or 9 hours I've given to you guys. So when I go home, I don't need any interruptions or distractions. And even during weekends, I don't need to be like I'm out there chilling with my friends or my family. You know, I'm just having some nyama there with a few drinks, and then like a text. Hey, brother, I need this report. Like, can you work on it like in 1 hour and send it to me? So, like for me, I would really appreciate if we could have clear-cut boundaries, where I don't need to worry about. Oh yes. Like I was saying, I think there needs to be clear-cut boundaries between work and in your personal life. Exactly. Like as in, but for you, on the other side of the fence, which is okay. To be honest, for me, yes, I am actually on the other side of the fence. I think part of it for me is trade of the role that it's very difficult to. I haven't actually now this one. Let me just be open about it. I haven't found an environment where I haven't been required.
I think for you,
it's not CRT by there. I'll be asked at it.
It's because for you, it's because of your profession. Again, guys, he's in IT. So IT, you'll find yourself.
I'll find myself. Which
like
is
in situations where even during the weekends, like there are still systems that are running, and if there's a hiccup, it will need to be addressed immediately. So for IT, there are some services that you will not have clear-cut boundaries between work and personal life, because if something happens, then we'll need someone to address it right now.
So let me ask you a question. Devil's advocate again. Hapa tu najua umeenda kwa extreme here. You're being asked for a report that takes 3 days to be sorted out. Na umeitishwa on a Friday. So let's say it's Friday 9 p.m. Tayari uko kwa joint, I'm assuming ni mtu wa joints, ushaangusha chupa mbili. Then it's not an email, it's a text that comes in. Hey, by the way, zile figures za tax za month of July, was it this much or this much? It's a yes or no question. Do you respond? Ama unataka you respond on Monday?
So I think bado ina go back to the kind of relationship that you have with whoever is asking, because if nimse like hajazoea kwa katabia ka kusumbua, plus it's a simple question anyway. Are the figures correct? Then you will just answer it. No, that does not need you to,
No, but if you look at it technically, you're working.
Okay, yes, I understand you're working, but it's a simple question. That one I would answer it. And then if maybe someone is stuck somewhere, they need to make this decision right now, ni kitu urgent imetokea, nitai answer. But if that 9 p.m. that someone is telling me, can you do this report? And that report takes you like a minimum of 3 hours to prepare. Remember, it's 9 p.m. at night. You're in a club somewhere, just enjoying yourself.
Ushatandika meza.
Yes.
I am sorting them out.
Exactly. And then someone is asking you. Already even your state of mind, like you're not
is not for generating
any kind of reports. So I think the person who is sending you this text should also be considerate of. So naisiku ati ni mazoea ati every other time by the do you know there are people who are like that? I don't know if you've worked in places like that. Someone is they have total disregard of your personal life. It's like the assumption is like you're always working, like you're sure even for people who go and leave, there are people who go and leave. You go and leave for like a week, 2 or 3. Like this whole time, requests have just been coming in. You're being asked to generate reports, whatever. So technically, it's like you've been working, but you're on leave. So why should I even apply for the leave? I hear it I'm working from home because like I am not even enjoying myself.
Fortunately for me, okay, I haven't been required per se to work over Saturdays. Si ati kuna mahali imesema ati you will be working. And fortunately, again, the people I've been reporting to haven't made it a requirement. But as an individual, as in operating within an environment where I know I need to make it work, I have clear-cut objectives, I need to deliver ABC. Nimejipata mimi ndo najituma and be like, here, I have to, let me just put in some hours hapa kidogo, because I know if I don't do something here, my next week would be hectic. So that's been a personal decision for me.
I understand. So if it's been a personal decision, well and good. And I know guys like you. There are people who
there are
people who like even if it's a holiday, like for example, Lile holiday in Easter. Easter Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. So those 4 days, and then kuna yenye pia Tuesday ilikuanga holiday. There's a time we had like 5-6 days of.
Yeah.
So there are people who are like, those are too many days for me to just chill at home. I need to go to the office. There are people who are just, as in umependa job that much. So hata kama akona job ama hana, they will still feel the need to go to the office. It's because it's like they don't have a life, and I'm sorry to say that. It's like they do not have a life outside of work. So like job and your like their entire life as in umse ajui anything else. So even telling them to go and leave, they're like, but that's unajua kuna watu kataa kwenda leave. Like people don't. There are places where people are being forced to go and leave. You need to go, like go. Enda upumzike. We are forcing you to go on leave. So yeah. But I think on that one we have different views. For me, I think
very true. Very true. In my end, wacha we'll
circle back. But we'd like to hear your views as well, guys. Tell us what you think about some of the signs that may tell you that a culture is toxic or not. We have not been able to talk about all of them. We've just covered I think like 4 or 5 or 6, but this is part 1. We'll do part 2 where we just cover the rest of the signs. And we would also like to hear your feedback.
Yes, please also just share some of the signs that probably you have experienced as you're operating within your workspaces, within your various professions. Just tell us, other than whatever you've mentioned, kuna hizi kadhaa. I know guys wakona comment, guys.
And actually hizo kadhaa, maybe we can include them in our list as we're doing the next.
And I think now in our next, we will address what we had mentioned. What can you do to more or less dissociate the organization from this toxic cultures in quotes? And if you find yourself in that scenario, what do you do?
Yes, exactly.
So guys, I think for this episode, that's been it from us. please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Imagine it's free.
Yeah,
Subscribe
it's
ni
better,
free
it's
bana.
free. It's free.
But thank you so much
Just
for
tap tu kwa kitu hapo.
kabaton kared. Vile buttons za red watu
wanapenda tu
wanapenda kuzimia.
Yeah.
So yes, until we catch up next time, please like, share it with as many people, and again, thank you for joining us. So
Yeah.
until next time,
Deuces.
deuces.